So just recently I showed you guys how to fix your condensation lines, more particularly for me because both of my lines were at the same level. So instead of having a primary and a secondary, it was essentially two primary lines. But that's in a different video, but I briefly went over this safety switch. You could get this online. I think Home Depot sells them. So basically, this is a backup to make sure if there's a flood or the lines are clogged, it's not going to back up into your system and then drain into the floor. And since mine's on the second story, it would actually drain down into the first floor. Just recently, my brother had one. His is on the first floor, but it's still, the switch didn't work. And come to find out, it wasn't even wired in right, but it didn't work. So instead of it stopping the machine, it just flooded both of the rooms next to the air handler. So I thought I should come back, kind of go over this switch a little bit better and more in detail on how to install it in case yours does not have it. I highly recommend you installing one of these if you don't have it, and you can call a contractor if you want, but it's pretty easy. It's something you could do in 30 minutes if you really wanted to get into it. So basically, like I said, this will sit on the condensation line. If the primary line gets clogged, naturally it's supposed to go to the secondary line, and if that line gets clogged, then the floater here will go up, it'll send the signal to the air handler and shut everything off. It's a little inconvenient, but it's better for it to shut off and prevent damage than it is for it to just let it keep going, because I'm telling you, I've seen it in my neighborhood, my brother's house, and all over, where if it goes too long, it'll destroy your house. So it's worth buying one of these. I believe they're 20 bucks, I think is what I paid for this one, and I'll show you how to install that real quick. If you do go and buy this particular model, it's gonna come looking just like this. This is where the float sits right there, and it'll go right into a 3/4 inch PVC pipe right here. Then the two wires typically run to the top of your unit, but every unit's a little different, so don't mark my words for that. But give you kind of get a close look up. It's the cheapest thing on your unit, and I highly recommend getting one. So I'll reinstall this down here. You're gonna need a 1/4 inch nut driver or any type of wrench to take the bolts off here. Now I did turn off both of my thermostats, but I'll also kill the breaker here. There's no reason, it's low voltage, but there's no reason to play with it while the power is on. Your blower motor, these are the breakers for the high side. So don't play with anything up there, and don't reach your hand anywhere. All we're looking right now is for this board. Now some equipment does not have a board such as this. It's probably going to be closer to, well, my unit doesn't have it, but this is your thermostat wire. Thermostat wire is always like a brownish color, and they have very thin lines, and they'll be like red, orange, white, blue, green, and that's all you're looking for. So once you get your switch down there, you're gonna run the wire up the side of your air handler, and there's two lines. It doesn't matter which one goes where, but the way I install them is I go from the red or the R terminal, and then I just loop it together. What that's going to do is you're basically just adding another series, I guess. Mind you, I don't know what I'm talking about, but basically the typical wire up is the thermostat wire goes right to the R terminal. The R terminal is the power to your thermostat. Adding this switch is I'm just basically adding an extra line to the thermostat wire. And in that line, there's a switch. It's pretty basic. And so I'm gonna take the R off, I'll wire nut the thermostat wire to one of these wires, and then the other wire, I'll put it right on that R terminal. Like I was saying, these lines from your safety switch, it's just 2. It doesn't matter. There is no left or right, or I need to plug this one to that one. Either way works. So get your safety switch in place down there, run your wire along the side, and then find, mine has this board which is nice and convenient. Some of them are not like that. Some of them are just a whole bunch of wires, basically this group of wires tied in with other groups of wires. So it gets complicated, but it really isn't. All you need to know is, for this application, is the red terminal, the red wire, or the R terminal, is your main power for your thermostat. And that's what we're trying to add this safety switch to. So I'm going to take the wire off of the R terminal, I'll wire nut one side to that line, and then the other wire I'll just put up to the R terminal. Now this allows that current to still make its loop and make everything work fine, but this way, if a line gets clogged and that switch activates, it shuts down the whole system and not just the air conditioning side or just the blower fan. So make sure you tie it into the R. I've seen people do it to the Y or wherever, but I like doing it to the R. This way it shuts the whole dang thing down, and I know pretty quickly something's going on. All right, with your wire here, you want to make sure it stays tight. You don't want a short or a loose wire. But don't twist it so much that you end up snapping the wire, because it's very thin wire. The other one, like I said, will go to the R. Make sure that's good. That. All right, now what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna turn the breakers back on. You can see the lights starting to work up. Thermostat's come back on. So far we know everything was wired okay. Now that light on the side right here shut off, but I'll show you what the thermostat actually looks like. So you wake up in the morning, you go to work, your thermostat looks like that, everything's working great. But then you come home and it is like that, then you know your switch was engaged and your house is probably boiling hot if you live in Texas. So you absolutely know something's wrong. But like I was saying, the switch is tied right into the R terminal, so once it's activated, it shuts the whole system down. Now the only thing left to do now is just put the cover back in place, turn it back on, and you're good to go.